Do you guys ever wonder where music came from or how they even start? Alright, so basically going back to the early stage, this is a David Bowie flute. It is made of bare bones. Basically, they will hunt for animals, usually bears, just to make up flutes. And they had really limited songs or tunes they could play, since they only could create 2 to 3 holes. And I'm gonna show you like a little the sounds how they make and a little background of the David Bowie flute. So this is how it sounds. It's sounds more like whistling, I would say. It's really up to you how you guys hear it. Alright, so I don't know about you guys, but for me it sounds more like whistling or sounding like making up something random. Music is used to express emotions and connect to one another. Um, so music has helped everyone one way or another. It can relax you during your hard times, or it can help you out during studying. And this one, the bottom here, is a lyre. It is close similar to the guitar. Uh, During overtime, humans tried to improve the instruments. So the earliest evidence of music goes back to the Stone Age, and possibly the oldest instrument we found is a David Bowie flute, which is 43,000 years old. Over time, humans tried to make new instruments and new sounds. So the reason we found patterns is because of the musician bird. Unfortunately, I don't have a picture of it right now. Sorry, let me get the controller real quick. Alright, so the musician bird is a bird that creates patterns, creates tunes, and that's where we found our first harmony. So basically, by 7,000 BC in China, we found the first evidence of melodic flute. Melodies are made by playing 2 notes together, which creates harmony. So this instrument right here is about 2,000 to 3,000 years old. It is very rare. Not many people have seen it. So I'm gonna show you a little tune that I made from it, from my guitar. It's a lot different from the David Bowie flute. So this is my tune that I made. Uh, Alright, so as you can see, the music from a guitar and a flute, it's a lot different. It has improved over time. Not many flutes sound the same as the ones today. So by December 1877, Thomas Edison walked into an office with a gramophone. So the gramophone is the first device that it's ever recorded and playback sound. The first song ever written was Hurricane Hymn. So back then, for people to listen to music, it was only live. Like they didn't have any radios or headphones. If you wanted to listen to music, they would have to go out and experience it on their own. So people took voice lessons, practiced their piano forte, because if they wanted a little music, they would have to practice. So thanks to technology, music got smaller, cheaper, loud. The gramophone, the jukebox. So the gramophone, the jukebox, the Walkman, the CD and the mini disc player and the MP3 has brought music to our ears. So December 1888 is where Thomas Anderson first invented the jukebox and the gramophone. So humans try to recreate old instruments and improve them over time, such as the guitar, the jukebox, and other instruments. Couple of pros and cons about listening to music is that several students have shown that listening to music before studying or performing a task that requires your total focus can be beneficial. It improves your memory, attention, and reduces the level of anxiety and depression. In hard times, music can relax you. Couple cons about it is that a song can cause someone to think about a lost one. They can damage their ears. It can make their mind forgetful. The wrong music can create a lot of distractions. So in conclusion, back then music wasn't great, but over time, us humans have recreated it, have improved it, and have made new lyrics, notes, which which helps us like recreate new music for the future and new tunes, and that is it.
So Ashley, what did you think?
Well, you got the music major on the music topic. I felt that coming in with a question was a very good idea, but then there was no intro after the question, and that the topic statement, unless I just missed it, I didn't hear it, which I guess was attempted to be put in the form of a question, but since it lacked sort of an intro and went straight to facts, I lost the feeling of knowing what we were talking about until we actually went into everything. Also, people did not invent music. We invented instruments to portray music. Within time, music did not change for the better. It developed with society, because without Beethoven, Brahms, and classical music, there would not have been the era that we are in today within music. We probably would still be within a different sound. Also, people did not need to learn to play to hear music. There were actually indoor saloons that people would listen to, and mostly the wives would play piano, not the men, unless they wanted to become composers. Another thing is that people were known to start music first with just beating something, like a rock, rather than the bone being the first instrument, but it was the first handmade instrument, which I thought is interesting. I didn't know the name of it, and I didn't know it was particularly bare bones. I felt the speech had a lot of well-known information and could be grasping if put in a different order of speech, because at one moment you were talking about the past instruments, which was interesting, but then you jumped to the current instrument that you were playing, and then suddenly went back to the past, and I didn't really understand what topic we were on at that point. And that's what I thought about it.
All right. Well, the observation about the introduction, I think, is probably accurate. The rhetorical questions, I think, are a perfectly reasonable way to get started. But the next thing I know is they are creating these things and they are hunting bears, and I'm not exactly sure if the flute is made out of the bones of bears. I think that that's what you're implying there. And you make it sound like they were hunting the bears for the purpose of creating the bones or getting the bones so they could make the flutes. That's an interesting theory. I would like a little bit of information about how somebody arrived at that particular conclusion. Like I said, I think the subject there is, I know that you're talking about the origination of music and maybe how it is developed a little bit over time, but I have to agree with Ashley. I couldn't really pick out your specific purpose statement. I don't know. I know your topic area is about music. I don't know exactly what you're saying about music, and I don't know what the plan is here. There's not really a preview or a structure that sets things up for us to follow, which makes it a little bit hard. You do sometimes seem to be jumping around on the topic. We go from the bone-based flute there to the lyra or the lyra, and then there's a guitar, and I'm wondering, okay, was the guitar supposed to be mimicking the sounds of the lyra, or is it a separate thing that you're talking about? This is where music is today in comparison to the way it was before. I like the idea of including the sounds in your presentation, but there's not really much explanation about why we are listening to that second sound and how it is that we're supposed to be comparing it. I guess there's a little bit of explanation about melody and harmony. There's other context that I think is missing here, and then we jump to recorded music, and then we go backwards a little bit to talking about how music might have been enjoyed prior to recorded music. So there's not really a pattern of organization. It seems like it's going to be chronological at one point, but then it turns out that there's kind of this back and forth that you're doing in the presentation. I didn't hear excuse me. I didn't hear really a lot of source citations. There was one place where you were talking about pros and cons of listening to music, and there's a vague reference to, I think the term that you're using is studies, and you said students, and that's just a slip of the tongue. But you don't tell us who conducted any of these studies and what they consisted of, so that stays a little bit abstract and uncertain as to what it is that you're talking about there. I'm familiar with some of the research that you're talking about, not having read it all, but I've heard about it on numerous occasions in classes, for instance, and so it seems like there's a lot of data there that could be exploited and presented in the speech, but that's not really the direction that I think you're going in. I'm not, like I said, I'm not quite sure where it is that you're going to end up during this presentation, so I think some of the organizational stuff is really problematic. The visuals, the pictures on the first slide are perfectly fine, except that there needs to be a little bit more explanation about what's going on. Are we talking about time periods? It sounds to me like you've got something from 43,000 years ago and something from only a couple of thousand years ago together in that one slide, and then we hear something from today being played, and I'm going, well, we're covering a lot of history with this one slide, and I'm not exactly sure that it distinguishes the information that we're supposed to be getting. There's also a tendency to kind of do some reading and occasionally give your presentation to the screen instead of the audience. You need to do a little bit better job at that. All right, I'll stop there. Thank you.